What's up, guys? Brendan back again to have another comic book review, almost a game blast. Welcome back to another comic book review on the channel, and it's been a while since we've done a comic book review. Last one we did was the Amazing Spider-Man #1 for that came out this year, and I thought because Fantastic Four is coming out like this week, so I thought let's talk about a Fantastic Four comic. I wanted to read. I just wanted to read a Fantastic Four something in general to get the juices flowing, the blood pumping, all for the new movie. And I thought a perfect way, I think a great idea for a review for the movie coming out is actually going back to the beginning. We're going to review actually the first 5 issues of the original Fantastic Four run from 1961 to 62. So yes, this is going to be very exciting. And before everyone asks, these are not the actual old original copies from back in the day. These are what Marvel calls facsimile editions, which is something that Marvel and DC, and I assume other companies as well, like Image, Dark Horse, they all do, where, they just reprint, like, the old comics. They do it every few years, and so, Marvel and DC, I haven't seen them doing a lot lately. With Marvel, particularly with Fantastic Four, they've been just, putting out, each issue just of the original run, just, slowly over time. Currently, they put out issue 6 recently. I know they're going up to at least issue 9 and 10. So, they also did re-release issue number 48, which has when, Galactus debuts and everything, because, he'll be in the new movie. So, yeah, I don't have that one, but I'm going to pick it up probably. So, yeah. I was very excited to actually, read these and see what they're like. Because, I've never, no, I have read maybe at least, I've read from, a little, I don't know, fun children's book, the original Amazing Fantasy debut Spider-Man. So I've read some old school Marvel stuff, but yeah, it's my first kind of, real proper, toe dip into, old school, Marvel comic stuff like this. So yeah, the original run written by Stan Lee and drawn by Jack Kirby, this is, this was the beginning of the Marvel age, back in the day with comics and all that stuff, because, yeah, of course, we had Captain America at that point, and other characters like Namor and the original Human Torch, Jim Hammond, who was an android. We had them in the 40s and late 30s. But this was, really the proper age of Marvel began with Fantastic Four. So, of course, so it's big, and definitely reading some of these issues, you do feel how this is the beginning of the age of Marvels, is what they would refer to, because, it's just kind of them. The world's still not really used to a lot of these, crazy people with powers and a bunch of other stuff, and, we'll get into it as we get into some of the issues, but, yeah. It won't be, a really in-depth review of each issue, I guess. It's more so giving me, me talking about, what each issue is like, of course, because, they're older, so they're well-known at this point, but so I just kind of want to talk about what they're like reading and everything, because I'm assuming a lot of you maybe have never read these at all, so, yeah. Let's start with issue number 1, which came out in November of 1961. And it has this iconic first cover, which just looks great. You look at that, and I feel definitely back in the day, if you see that on the comic book shelf, it's what is this? It looks very interesting. And it's Jack Kirby doing what he likes to do. He likes drawing a bunch of weird stuff, weird monsters, and he got that right here. As the Fantastic Four in this book fight, their very first villain ever was the Mole Man, fun fact, so that's really cool. And also, again, this is their origin issue also is the other thing. One thing I gotta say also about these facsimile editions of these older comics, when they reprint them, they straight up just reprint them exactly as they were. Again, here's the cover, exactly the same as it was back in the day. It has the original date on it when it came out, the Comics Code Authority. But, also has everything else that was included with the comic back then, this little thing on the back talking about how here's looking for people who like to draw and everything. There's Jack Kirby there. I believe so. Yeah, that's Jack Kirby, I assume. But yeah, it's got all that stuff. It has all the old ads and everything that were in these comics back then, which I think is really cool that they also do that. Cause it really gives you a kind of glimpse into the past and what everything was like. This ad right here is advertising some weight loss thing. The top of it says, skinny or fat, 15, 20, 30, or 40 years of age, just rush me your last chance coupon below with your name and address on it, and I'll show you absolutely free how to gain up to 50 pounds of mighty muscles. I wonder if it's still available. But yeah, again, the first issue is the origin story. You know how the origin is, really. Of course, they were hit by, they went up into space, hit by cosmic rays, and they come back down to Earth, and they were changed in as the 90s theme song puts it.
It's the most fantastic way.
Yeah. So, in the most fantastic ways. And, yeah, and what I find so funny reading the origin part, before we actually get into the origin, what it is, it's, of course, establishing, because it's a flashback where we go back to see how they came to be, but it starts off with Reed Richards just shooting a flare into the sky, signaling the Fantastic Four, we must assemble, because for whatever reason they were all just scattered around the city doing their own things. Reed was at his house, Sue was just having tea with her friend, we never really established who it is, and she bumps into a bunch of people, gets a taxi ride, and freaks out the taxi driver because she's invisible. Ben's shopping for clothes and whatever, and then he, takes off his clothes and all that stuff, and then, Johnny's just hanging out with somebody, fixing a car, and he has to go off and all that stuff. And again, for everybody, everyone in New York's kind of like, what are these people? And, literally, they attack Johnny with jets. So this is how, new, this kind of age of heroes is at this point in time. The Marvel Universe, this is the beginning. So, they're not used to what these are, who these people are. So it's it's kind of interesting. And so, yeah, there's all that. And then you actually get into the actual origin. And I don't know why this shocked me at all. I don't know why it did. But, in the origin goes there, Ben's, he's ripping Reed a new one, talking about, dude, no, we can't go up right now. It's unsafe. It's too dangerous. We can't go up into space right now, dude. And Sue's trying to tell Ben how we need to go up there. And she tells him this: Ben, we've got to take that chance, unless we want the commies to beat us to it. Which, I don't know why it made me, shocked at all. I literally read that and I was like, of course. It, the whole reason they went up into space, they got hit by the cosmic rays at all in the original comic was because they had to beat the commies. It was the space race back in the 60s. We weren't even on the moon yet back then. This was 61, we were good, what is it? Yeah, 8 years off from that still. So, it was funny to me. I'm like, yeah, why am I shocked by this at all? That it was the commies that made them oh, we gotta beat the commies with this. And, after they crash land on Earth, they start, Sue turns invisible, Ben starts complaining, Reed's getting sick and tired of him, so then Ben turns into the Thing, and then stretching, and then fire. Again, all the typical stuff you expect from the origin. Also, you probably have noticed from the comic panels I've been showing that, the Thing doesn't actually look quite like he normally does here. Let me get one of the other covers at. He's kind of it doesn't look like a rock guy yet, because that's how he initially did look. He looked a bit more sludgy and, muddy almost. Or as, one YouTube channel, Comic Pop, who I watched, they refer to him as, Dino Thing, which, sure. But yeah, it wasn't until, later that he got and turned to a rock form. I don't know when, I'll put up on the screen here what it was, but, yeah, that's when it happened. But then here's what really took me back the most when I was reading this, is when Johnny lights on fire for the first time, he says this. He says, now I know why I've been feeling so warm. Look at me. They've affected me too. When I get excited, I can feel my body begin to blaze. So, when I read that, I was like, what? Are they saying Johnny's power at the time was tied to him, his emotions? When he gets excited, he bursts into flames? I don't know about all of you. That's fucking horrifying. What if he was in bed with a woman one time and he gets excited and bursts into flames, that woman's gonna be oh Johnny, holy fuck! And in that woman's gonna go to have therapy counsel sessions, she be PTSD, she was hooking up with a dude and all of a sudden he burst into flames. Can you imagine that for the woman? Is that what they're trying to imply? Because they're all kind of they all get their powers when they're kind of very emotional at the time. Sue turns invisible when she's kind of worried she's nervous about what's happening with them. Ben turns into the Thing when he's just angry and annoyed right now about this whole thing. And then Reed also starts stretching when he's kind of annoyed at the Thing and everything. And then Johnny here and all that stuff. So, I don't know, it's maybe that wasn't the exact case, but when they have Johnny phrase that, when I get excited, I burst into flames, it's very horrifying, I find. I don't want to think about that. And yeah, again, there's not much, again, after that, the issues them finding the Mole Man. They're finding the giant monster and everything, they're teaming up and all that stuff. And so yeah, they go to this island, they encounter some other, three-headed dragon creatures and all that stuff. Johnny and Reed get split up into their group, and then Ben and Sue were on their group and everything. I think Ben had kind of the hots for Sue back then, or at least they were trying to make that a thing, because when he first starts attacking Reed, he's saying stuff I'll prove to you you loved the wrong man, Susan, so I guess that's a thing they were also going to do. He, a love triangle. It's not really a thing in the book, but still, that's something they were doing. So yeah, Johnny and Reed fall underground. They get put in these two weird outfits out of nowhere that the Mole Man put them in. They're described as, garbed in strange adhesive-type suits which protect them from the blinding unearthly glow. So yeah, there's some kind of suits that the Mole Man put them in to protect them from this crystal stuff underground. And you know, and then like the Mole Man goes into his origin and all that stuff, and yeah, oh yeah, you get a real sense of what the Thing looked like in this panel here. It's like, yeah, he looks nothing like how he would eventually become. I should say, Jack Kirby's art is quite good. I think it looks really solid. And a lot of the faces are good. The weird designs are cool. You know, I also miss this kind of thing held back in comics. They could just get away. I mean, probably because like certain kind of colors were not cheap to print. Like they could get away with having like just different like areas colored not quite correctly. Like the Mole Man is completely shaded in red a lot of time in the book, and I mean, they could just get away with drawing him like with these different kind of shading colors. It's kind of fun. But yeah, Mole Man's all about how everybody mocked him. They thought he was a weird guy. They didn't like him and everything. So he strikes out on his own. He leaves to go find the legendary land, the center of the earth, which he does, which includes all these monsters, and he's like their ruler, whatever, and king and all that shit. But he fell down to the center of the earth, and he lost his sight and everything, and all that stuff.
So this is an edit later, as I forgot to explain what Mole Man's plot was in the comic. He was having his creatures destroy every atomic plant in the world, because they're the most sufficient source of energy in the whole world, so once they're gone, there's like no power left for the world. So that way, without the world's central power, he could have his creatures destroy every major city in the world so that he could rule the earth as his empire.
He gets into a fight with them and all that, you know, Ben and Sue find them and all that stuff, and you know, they win. There's not much to it. That's why we're not going like super in depth with these reviews of the comics, because there's not too much to them with these comics. You know, back in the day, they weren't super in depth like now they are. But still, they're a lot of fun, I would say. This first issue was very solid, and it was a great read, because again, it's like reading about like the Fantastic Four in this early comic was great. And again, great art from like Jack Kirby at the end here with the creature designs. Just like, you know, that's what he likes doing. He liked doing that. And yeah, I can definitely see like why people, when they picked this first issue up back in the day, why they were probably excited and wanted to keep reading. Because, you know, it's definitely a lot of fun. Again, you have to look at it from the mindset it's like the 60s back then when these came out. But still, they're a bit of fun. One thing I will say that happens in this book, you'll see as we get along, is that Ben is very confrontational a lot of time. And again, as we keep going forward, it happens a lot. But especially with Johnny, he's very confrontational. I mean, yeah, he has a good reason. He looks like a monster. He's mad about it. But he's always bickering with Johnny about it. It's always something that's happening. So it's like, you know, I could see maybe by like today's standards, people could read that and find it very like taxing after a while. It's like just repeating over and over, like, okay, he keeps beefing with Johnny. You know, it's important as we go on. Second issue is then the debut of the Skrulls. They fight the Skrulls in this issue. And this is a fun issue also, albeit how also goofy and silly it is, because, you know, again, it starts with the Skrulls impersonating the Fantastic Four, using, like, different trickery to, like, mimic their powers, you know. The Thing Skrull, like, sinks an oil tanker on the water, you know, Skrull Sue steals a diamond, everything. You know, the Skrull Johnny melts a statue that's being unveiled, then Skrull Reed just turns off the whole power in the city by just stretching his arm and flipping one switch, then the whole power's gone. Because it's the 60s, I guess. And yeah, the whole thing, they're trying to, like, discredit them and everything, and then they reveal that we have to discredit them because they're our biggest threats, and once we get rid of the Fantastic Four, nobody can stand in the way of our Skrull invasion, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think there's also good artwork here just showing, like, the Skrulls kind of shape-shifting in their early design. I like the idea of how, like, their eyes are like these, like, swirling spirals in them. That's kind of cool. At this point in time, like, the Fantastic Four are just hiding out in some cabin in the woods and talk about how, we gotta stop this and everything. And Johnny talks about how we gotta take care of this while holding a rifle. I don't know if they just came back from hunting, or he's literally like, I'm gonna go grab a rifle and we're gonna shoot these guys. Maybe it's both. I don't really know. It's very fascinating. And yeah, again, Ben's like getting mad and angry. He's like, oh, these people, they're impersonating me and they're calling us monsters. Well, I already am a monster and all that stuff. Yada, yada, yada. And it's at this point where, like, they recap the origin. And this will happen also in the third issue, where their origin will be recapped in both this issue and the next issue, which I was kind of like, oh, geez, they're really recapping the origin twice? And I guess because, like, it was the 60s, like, people weren't like, there was no YouTube to Google their information, or like YouTube or Google or any kind of site to look up their information. Like, you had to have bought the book and everything. And, you know, but again, it wasn't a very big common thing, I guess, back then to, like, just constantly going to the store and buying these new comics, or magazines as they were called back then. So they just kind of, like, I guess, have to recap the origin a few times and all that stuff. So yeah, they don't do it too many times afterwards. Like, it's only in the first issues 2 and 3 they do it in, but still. Also, each issue kind of has, like, they're divided into, like, chapters and parts, which is interesting. I found that kind of curious, so, yeah. And the four, they get captured by the military, and they're like, oh, we got them now. But, of course, they don't keep them for long. So, like, Sue literally just goes invisible, so they can't see her. Johnny's, like, in a special, like, asbestos room, so he can't turn his flame on and everything, but he finds there's a vent under, like, he pulls up the ground a little bit and finds a vent, and he can use that to help flame on this time around. You know, Ben just, like, didn't account for his strength too much, and then Reed just, like, managed to, like, stretch his body thin enough to squeeze between, you know, the screws in the wall and everything, and they break out, and then their plan is, it's admittedly very silly. Their plan is to try and lure out the fakes, is that Johnny will go to the site of a new rocket being tested, like the real Johnny, and he'll destroy it. Like, he'll actually melt it, and like, aha! This will get their attention, they'll come and pick me up thinking I'm the Skrull Johnny. But it's like, you're also still destroying actual property by like a $1 million rocket, man. Like, I don't... And of course, they bring him home thinking like, oh, he's one of us. They get home and realize, oh shit, this isn't the right guy, and then the right guy does come here and all that stuff, and yeah. I like the artwork actually of like, you know, initially how they drew Johnny back then also when he flamed on, it very much was like later on in comics, like it was like an actual like kind of more human form that just looked very red and orange. Back then, he literally was a big, like, glop of fire, it looked like, and it's really cool, I really dug it. And again, you see more examples of them getting away of coloring things just very not what they probably would be colored. Like, the rocket is completely yellow. You know, people in the background are also colored in, like, red and orange. And, like, it's kind of fun. It's, like, very charming seeing how, like, that's how they did comics back in the day. Because, you know, coloring was a little expensive, I guess, and, like, you know, hard to do. So, yeah, the Fast Four find Johnny after he singles for them. And then they explain to them, ask them, man, we need to know what you're doing. And there's like, oh, you were our biggest threat. So once we got rid of you, we could invade the Earth. All that stuff. And I will say the coloring, the one time I don't like the coloring is in this one shot of Reed here, because why did they shade his face super dark like that in that one area? It just looks, I guess it's supposed to be like shadow, like it's really intense there. It does not look great. But so their plan is they decide, okay, so they've been impersonating us, so let's return the favor. We'll impersonate them like they're impersonating us, go back to the mothership, tricking them into thinking that they can't invade here and they have to leave. So they go back up to their spaceship and inform them that you can't invade and all that. They show them some pictures of like, look at what the armies and creatures they have on Earth. We can't invade here. Which is literally just like, as Reed says, I pray he doesn't suspect that they are actually clipped from Strange Tales and Journey into Mystery. So it's from comic pages. So like, Journey into Mystery is where Thor came from. And Strange Tales, I think... Oh god, what was Strange Tales again? I think that was like where the original Human Torch came from. I'll have to double check that, but yeah. Again, just funny little creature designs. They'll top it how there's also like, oh, like, caught like space mines up around the Earth. So like if our ships did try attacking Earth, they'll get blown up by mines. And also there's giant ant creatures down there, which like was, I think, unintentional foreshadowing for Ant-Man possibly, so that's fun. And then afterwards, like, you know, the commander's like, oh shit, we can't invade here, so we gotta escape, come on, let's get out of here. And, you know, of course, they have to tell him, like, well, we can't come with you. And he tells them the reason why is because we must stay behind and remove all evidence of our presence on Earth. We shall sacrifice ourselves so that you will be safe. To which the Skrull leader very easily believes that, and he's like, never in our history has there been so noble a deed. Take this highest award of your bravery. And then he's just like, phew, you don't know the half of it, brother. So it's like, again, very simple shit. Like, and at this point I thought the book could end. They're going back to Earth and everything. And as they're going back to Earth, they repass through the cosmic ray field, and Ben turns back into normal. He turns back to normal for like only a few panels and everything, and then he turns back to the Thing. This will also happen in issue 4. It just happens for no rhyme or reason, just to kind of give him a glimpse, a taste of, you know, being human, then turn back almost immediately. I don't know why it's here, it's kind of random, but yeah. They come on Earth and they have to explain to the military, no, here's what happened. They bring them to their place, and the Skrulls that were captive there, that were pretending to be them, are now breaking out, pretending to be like giant snakes, and like turn into a giant snake and like a giant metal creature with maces for hands, or like a battle mace, you know what I mean? And a bird also. And, you know, they capture them, and then the police believe them, like, oh, we're sorry, the Fantastic Four, carry on. And they start trying to talk about, what do we do with these guys? And they're begging for their lives, like, no, please don't kill us. We don't want to be Skrulls. We've always hated being Skrulls. Like, they've always hated being their own species. So, yeah, they're like, we swear that we don't kill us. We'll do anything. We don't want to go back to Skrulls or own world, all that shit. And he's like, okay, I got an idea. Here's what we'll do. And so, here's the thing. So, I've watched a lot of Fantastic Four cartoons. I've watched most of them. I've watched almost all the Hanna-Barbera one from the 60s. And I've watched all the 90s Fantastic Four cartoon. I've watched one episode of the 70s cartoon where they replaced Johnny with Herbie because they thought they were scared kids would light themselves on fire. So, like, apparently. And I did watch a few episodes of the 2000s one that was inspired by anime a lot. It was on TV when I was a kid, but I don't remember a lot of it, though. The point I'm trying to make here is that a lot of the cartoons actually adapt these comic stories, for the most part, accurately. Like, the first one with Mole Man, that I rewatched an episode of the 90s Fantastic Four cartoon recently, and I realized, oh wait, they're kind of doing similar stuff in that episode they do in the comic. Like, they have Reed and Johnny off by themselves on a mission, and like then Sue and Ben off by themselves, and like the Mole Man also puts Reed and Johnny in like suits when they fall underground. So like, it's similar. Same thing with this one to an episode from the 60s cartoon where their solution is they have them transform into cows and then hypnotize them so that they don't remember they are Skrulls, so they'll never turn back into normal Skrulls and are just left alone in a random field to just eat grass forever. I'm not kidding, that's what happens. And I'm like, that actually happened in the comics, and it's always funny to me. And again, like, they did that here and in the cartoon, they adapt the story, but they did it with Super Skrull in the cartoon. But it's like, just turn them into normal people. Like, why is the choice you make them like cows? Like, for the rest of time, they're gonna be milked by farmers, and without ever knowing they're like free-thinking, like, alien species that, like, don't need to be milked by people. It's like, I bet you, like, you think the Ninja Turtles read this comic, and that's how they got the fear of being milked in the recent Mutant Mayhem film? Maybe. I'm just saying. Yeah. Comic was a bit of fun. This one's fun. And also, being into the 60s, they're advertising buying a gun. Just a toy gun. Any kid can buy this gun, like, or ask for it for Christmas. You know, Christmas Story, you know, shot your eye out, the BB gun. Yeah. It's 1961, man. They were fucking nuts. We finally get issue number 3, where they finally get their outfits for the first time, which I also find very impressive. They waited to the 3rd issue to give them their outfits. Because, like, you know, even other superheroes at this, like, later on and beforehand, like, even if they had a prototype version of their suit, they at least had a suit in the comic. Like later on when they introduced Hulk and Iron Man, they had proto versions of their designs. Like, Hulk was gray, Iron Man had the Mark 1. And again, they would get, like, their more proper designs later, but still, they had at least designs. So, it's curious they waited till 3 issues in. And also, Susan Storm is one who creates the costumes here, which I was actually really surprised by, because I was like, oh wow, Susan, like, they actually let, like, so, like, because it's actually surprising they let, like, the girl character or the woman character, like, create the team's outfits back in the 60s. Like, I don't know, because, you know, back then, like, the whole thing, and you see it sometimes in these books where it's like, you know, silly girl, women, what do they know, like, stuff like that. So, it's kind of cool to me they actually have her create, like, their defining looks that, you know, have last test of time. It's similar to the Avengers, where they actually let Wasp in the original issue name the team. So I thought that's kind of cool, actually. And, you know, the clothing's also just normal cloth at this point. Oh, yeah, also they drew Johnny more normal how they do nowadays, like where he's got the lines going down and everything. But yeah, there's normal cloth, the costumes here in this book. Like later on, other stuff. Like later on, they think they would retcon that Reed creates them because, like, I don't know exactly what it is, but Reed creates the unstable molecules which allow the costumes to, like, bend to their, like, specific powers. So, like, that's why Reed's suit can, like, stretch as long as he can. Why Johnny doesn't burst into flames. Why Sue can go invisible with her. Why Ben's pants don't rip. I don't know. Yeah, Reed creates that. I don't know if, like, they retcon later that Reed creates the suits, or he adds that to, like, Susan's initial designs. Or, like, even the 2000s Fantastic Four films and everything, which, by the way, recently Julian McMahon, who played Doctor Doom in those films, passed away. Rest in peace. Yeah. They were wearing those kind of suits already when they were on the mission, so when the cosmic rays hit them, they got embedded with their powers, so that's why they work. But, just want to say that. I would say maybe this is my favorite issue, potentially. I think this one's just it's kind of fun. Again, a lot of stuff is introduced in this issue. Again, not just the costumes, but also the Fantastic Car and the Baxter Building. They fight a guy called the Miracle Man, some magician who, claims to be, more powerful than all the Fantastic Four, and he seems to be because, he can just, break a whole log with his, little finger like this. He can turn his whole body into smoke and a cloudy and, shoot lightning and, shoot a blinding light, all that stuff. And it annoys Ben to no end, because he's like, who's this guy who says he's more powerful than us? He's mocking us, mocking me. Fuck him. Ugh. This is what all it is. So that's kind of funny. And, they go back and we see their Fantastic Car and we see the Baxter Building and what it looks like and all that stuff. And it's fun. And, Reed's talking about how hopefully this guy never turns into a villain. He turns into a villain because, if he did, how could we stop him? By the way, Johnny Storm's face, sometimes in the comics, looks really weird. Why do they draw him sometimes like this? He looks like a goof. I don't know what he was doing. The Miracle Man he creates, he turns this giant statue of a monster outside of a movie premiere into a real thing, and they gotta go stop it. They just immediately assume it's a Miracle Man, which they're right, and all that stuff. They go and stop it. Mr. Fantastic goes and finds him, tries stopping the monster a little bit. He encounters Miracle Man, and gets defeated when he just throws a fucking brick at his head. Like Reed does. He throws a brick at his head, not today, Reed! And he's just done. And then the commissioner chews out Mr. Fantastic, I'm disappointed in you! And you almost had him, and then he slipped through your fingers. He's like, I'm sorry, Commissioner. He's like, sorry, is that the best answer I can get from Mr. Fantastic? It's really funny, because again, literally, what's Reed's excuse? He chucked the brick at his head. The guy's made of plastic. He could have just bounced that back and just, got hit by a brick and he's done. It's really fun to me. Also, what's interesting about this comic at this point in time, because again, they introduced the costumes in this comic, but I did not notice at all. So, obviously, people know that Ben, his costume was just he wore, pants, biker shorts or whatever. No, he had a full-on costume and everything. Initially, a whole costume he wore that as soon as he, gets in the battle, he rips it off and everything. Because he's he can't really move in the suit that well. But he's got a giant helmet on and everything as well. A giant metal mask that he wears. And I'm like, what is the point of this? And even after he rips it off, a couple pages later, he's just wearing it again. Not the helmet, but the whole suit. And it's why did they give him this suit? It's weird because again, that's very good. After this issue, you never see this costume again. I think because they realized that he doesn't need this because he's already a giant rock sludgy monster thing. That's his look. He doesn't need a giant suit with this metal dome looking helmet that kind of looks like the helmet of the guy from that one I don't know, Mad Max episode of Rick and Morty. Maybe not entirely, but that's my best example I can make of it. I don't know. Or it looks like one of the temple guards from Star Wars. I don't know. I'm trying to make some example here. But yeah, that, you don't need all that. So I'm glad they got rid of it immediately. And, Sue's on the case. The rest of the Fantastic Four get captured. No, they get defeated, sorry. But then Sue, she goes invisible and follows Miracle Man to, wherever he is and all that. And, yeah, then we have to recap the origin again. Johnny and Ben keep bickering to the point where Johnny says, I'm done with you guys, and he's, gonna leave. But, then they get back together just to find the Miracle Man once Sue... Because, he uncovers Sue, he finds her in his base, where he currently has this giant, tank, as an atomic tank he got somewhere to use as a weapon to, because he wants to rule the Earth. That's his plan. He wants to take over the world, think big, that's what these villains did back in the day. He catches Sue, he mind controls her to, send out the flare to the rest of the four, and all that to lure them here, and I'll take them down, and all that. So that's happening here. Another fun thing about this comic, which I didn't know they did back then, honestly. I thought that was just more of a recent thing, was there's a letters page. There's actually, fan pages of, people who sent in stuff for him to read and publish in the book. I did not know they did this back in the day. I thought that was actually cool when I discovered this in the books. I'm like, oh, cool. It's a neat little, window into the past to see what people were thinking, when they were reading these comics as they were coming out. That's what they're there for. This one in particular, I love this comment because it perfectly sums up, the 60s back in the day reading comics. This guy says, Dear editor, you've got a heck of a nerve making a doll like Susan Storm invisible. There it is. Because of course, that's what people would be saying back in the day. There's other stuff in here also talk about how, like, great this is, how fun and new and innovative it is, how, like, so there's even one people complaining saying, it's not as good as, like, Stan's other and Jack's other work, because, you know, prior to this point, they had just done a bunch of, like, romance. Like, Stan in particular, I think, only did, like, a bunch of romance comics and some other stuff. I'm not really sure. But yeah, there's not a lot there. They just complain saying it's not their best work and all that. Anyways, yeah, Fantastic Four, they find the Miracle Man. He pulls a bunch of other shenanigans. They free Sue from his spell by telling him to. You know, Johnny shows up. Also, they got there in a helicopter. Reed and Ben have a helicopter they flew. I don't know why. They have a Fantastic Car. Do they need all people there? They don't normally do. But they have a helicopter, which then the Miracle Man breaks, and then they get into a car, and then Reed has to replace one of the wheels so they can keep driving and fighting, all that stuff, you know. They catch the Miracle Man, and they find out that, you know, everything about him was you know, a hoax. He's just a hypnotist. He made people think he was that powerful, you know. He made people think he created that giant monster. Made people think that, like, he turned himself into smoke and all that stuff. And the way Reed finds out he's a hypnotist is because he was stealing jewels earlier in the book, and he's like, a man of your power would not have needed to steal jewelry. You could have just made it at any point in time. That's how he knows. Well, luckily, he'll never cause trouble again because, Johnny, like, and while chasing him in the atomic tank, like, lights himself on fire so bright, he blinds him. Like, I think permanently. And that's it. That's how they defeat him. You know. And then Johnny, again, he's fed up still with Ben. He's like, I don't care about you guys. Like, screw you. And he flies off. And he's like, whatever. But it's so funny. At the end, they're talking about, like, oh, Reed, what will become of Johnny? And he's like, I'm not sure, Sue, but I'm worried. I'm worried for mankind, for what we'll do if he should turn against us. Like, there's no reason for him to think that, by the way. Why would he ever think that? There's nothing in the book that indicates Johnny is going to join the dark side. So I don't know what's with that. But I guess to add stakes to the comic, you know, like, that's all it is. But anyways, we get the 4th issue where they reintroduce the Submariner, Namor, which he, you know, this is his first appearance in comics in years. You know, at this point now, they do not reestablish the origin in the comic, which is good. You know, they're currently right now just hunting down for Johnny and everything. They're looking around. You know, Sue's freaking out people. Although they do also give a recap of the last issue, that's fine. They also prove my point behind why they had a helicopter, because they then get into the Fantastic Car with just 3 people and they can go off fine. I don't know. Also, in this comic, they actually have, throughout the entire comic, on the outside of the border of the panels around the border, they have little text every now and then saying stuff like, the Hulk is coming. Who is the Hulk? What is the Hulk? You've never seen anyone like the Hulk. So they're teasing. Like, I looked it up. The Hulk comic, the first ever Hulk comic came out about a month after this one. So that was their way of teasing, like, the appearance of a new character, which I found was very interesting. They do that a lot like this back in the day. Like, they would just have, like, just simple text on the outside of the panels saying, hey, this guy is coming. What is this guy? Who is this guy? What's his deal? Like, where does he come from? Like, it's a good way, I guess, to keep in people's minds saying, like, hey, here he comes. But I was, like, reading this thing, thinking, like, is he going to show up in this book? Like, did his comic come out by this point? No, they're just teasing that he's coming. It's very cryptic, though. And yeah, they're just looking around, like, New York, trying to find Johnny. It's so funny, like, cause, like, Sue goes into a bar, drinks a soda, and freaks out people there. And then Reed literally just grabs a guy off a bike as he's and just says, hey, have you seen my friend? He's like, who the hell are you, man? And then he just puts him back down, and he knows nothing, and he leaves. Like, what the hell is the logic here? Ben does find him, and they get into a fight, turns back into, you know, normal for a little bit, then that's it. And then Johnny goes stay at a hotel for now, and people are telling him, he finds an old Submariner comic, and he's like, oh, I remember this guy. Sue was telling me about him back in the 40s. And then they're telling him, like, hey, I think that's cool. This guy here is, like, he's also super strong, like, just like that guy. And they are trying to, like, nudge him on, saying, come on, show the new guy what you can do. And then he's, like, getting mad, saying, like, leave me alone. And he just starts fighting all of them, saying, like, oh, I don't want anything to piss off. And the guy's, like, just grousing about how he can't remember anything, doesn't know why he's here, why he's been here all this time. And then Johnny finally decides, if you haven't guessed by now, it's Namor. It's obviously Namor. But it's so funny. Also, in this comic is when they finally have Johnny say his catchphrase, flame on. I don't know when Ben finds his clobbering time. He might have said it in one of these books, but I forget now. And I'll look it up before while I'm doing the editing. But yeah, Johnny says flame on for the first time in this book. And Johnny, the way he figures out that he's Namor is that he lights his finger and then he like trims his beard and his hair. Like gives him a shave and a haircut with his finger on fire. Like that is the most precision like cutting ever. I mean, he talked about he does have control over how much he can turn on his flame, but still, it's like that's crazy. And yeah, there's not much really going into this one, I would say. Let's kind of go by more quickly. Again, they're trying to search for Johnny. Johnny takes Namor, drops in the water. He remembers who he is, but then Namor goes and finds, the wreckage of Atlantis that was destroyed from the atomic bomb and everything. Then he's mad, like, oh, you humans, you guys suck. You destroyed my kingdom. I'll now rule the world, because that's everybody's plans. Rule the world. I'm sure it's This panel of Namor laughing also I find just very funny, because he looks like a toy. Almost. He looks like one of those, like, wind-up toys. Or, like, no, he almost looks like one of those, like, marionette dolls or stop-motion clay puppets from those old Rankin Bass Christmas specials. I don't know what he looks like, but he looks kind of funny how, like, again, he just looks like a toy, where you wind him up and he laughs, like, ha ha ha, ha ha ha, ha ha ha. Like, that's what it kind of looks like. I don't know, it's really goofy looking. And, yeah, again, there's another, he summons a giant monster, they attack. Jack Kirby liked drawing monsters, so that's kind of why he's here, and all that. And so, they attack the monster and everything. They then, they're losing a little bit. Then they strap a nuke, a bomb, a giant bomb. They tie it around the thing. He goes into the whale creature's mouth so that they can blow it up. It's nuts, clearly. And he's successful. He managed to get out of there in time. And Namor, then encounters Susan Storm, like how he does on the cover here. And he's like, ooh, you're the most loveliest human I've ever seen. If you'll be my bride, I might show mercy to the rest of your pitiful race. And Susan's just like, how can I make such a choice? And then they're telling him, like, no, it's enough, Namor, you're done. And he's like, you fools, I gave you a chance, but now I'll have the girl and my revenge. The next time I blow this horn, I shall unleash a horde of undersea monsters such as mankind never dreamt of. And yada yada yada. And like, Susan responds with, he means it. He might do it. We can't take the chance. No, Prince Namor, you mustn't. I'll do anything. I'll become your bride. One life such as mine doesn't matter, but humanity must be spared and all that stuff. You speak as though you are sacrificing yourself. Don't you realize what an honor I offer you? You can become Princess Namora, bride of the Submariner, co-ruler of Earth. It's goofy. They keep fighting Namor, and like eventually they defeat him by Johnny, goes in the air, flies around him a lot, creates a whirlwind, or what do they exactly call it? A tornado. He forms a tornado, sucks up Namor, tornado, and the monster, and then he flings them back into the water, and that's it. There's no resolution towards Johnny quitting the Fantastic Four, I guess. Once he called him for help about Namor trying to conquer the Earth, he's like, I guess I'm back with you guys. There's really nothing towards that plot point at all, which I guess back then there's no real point. You just want to see them get into the action and fight, But of course they also allude to how, we might see Namor again. So, they're already planting the seeds that, we'll see this guy again and all that stuff, and he'll probably be a reoccurring villain now. It's also interesting that, they make Namor a villain. I don't know how he was back in the old comics before then, but, he was a good guy. He worked with Captain America and Bucky and the Human Torch back during the 40s. It's funny also how he never mentions how, hey, you look familiar like that other guy I knew, the other Human Torch. I don't know. I guess it probably wasn't that big a deal back in the day, them transitioning Namor into a villain, because probably most people didn't really know about read all his older comics back in the 40s during World War II, so that's probably what it was. We're going to end off the video with the issue number 5, which has the first appearance of Doctor Doom. This is a really solid cover. I really dig it. I think it looks great. Again, this, like those previous ones where they're adapted in different cartoons, this one, reading it, was also adapted for Doctor Doom's first appearance in the 90s cartoon, which was 3 parts long and everything. And yeah, we're immediately introduced to Doctor Doom, talk about how the Fantastic Four, little do they dream, they are naught but pawns in the hands of Doctor Doom. But now it is time to let the Fantastic Four feel my might. For of all the humans on Earth, only I have the power to defeat them. And he's got a pet vulture, why wouldn't he? Also, Johnny's reading the Hulk comic now at this point, and again, Hulk, the original Hulk was gray. They stopped coloring him gray because gray was very expensive back then. So in this comic where they recreate the original comic cover of the Thing, of the Hulk, they don't draw him gray. They draw him just skin color. So yeah, this is before they, made him green. So that's funny. Ben and Johnny are bickering again and all that stuff, and then Doctor Doom drops a giant net over the Baxter Building and everything. He insists on having Sue as his captive, as his prisoner. He requests she be his hostage to ensure that you do what he demands.
Final additional edit of something I forgot to say during the video. Doom went to the same school as Reed, but in the original comic, Reed was not friends with him at all. He knew of him and that was it. They had no association whatsoever. And, Doom's origin was that he was obsessed with sorcery and black magic. One day he was doing an experiment with powers that he could not control and shouldn't have tampered with, which ended up leaving his face disfigured. He was then expelled, and then the next few years he was just wandering the wasteland, still trying to figure out the forbidden secrets of black magic and sorcery. And now we're here with him as Doctor Doom.
So, Susan agrees to it, so she goes up to him and be his hostage. Then he takes the rest of the four back to Latveria. There's more fan pages, by the way, in this book, like the last one also. I know it's a lot of people also, have gripes towards them calling him Mr. Fantastic, because admittedly, yeah, back then, it is kind of weird they call him Mr. Fantastic when you think about it, because all their names reflect their powers, like Human Torch, lights on fire, Invisible Girl, it goes invisible. The Thing, he's a giant monster, so he's a thing. And then Reed can stretch, so I'm Mr. Fantastic. It also comes after Ben grouches in the first issue talking about how, I'm an ugly monster now, so I guess I'm just a thing. And then Reed's like, I shall be Mr. Fantastic, which, yeah, I don't mind the name. I do like it, of course, it's been there forever. But still, it is funny how they never thought to call him something besides that, like Stretchy Guy, or like Stretchy Dude. I don't know. Plastic Man, or Plastic Man probably existed by that point. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, he takes the four of him back to his castle, and he basically tells them that he wants them to go back in time for him to grab Blackbeard's treasure chest, because there's something in that treasure chest that he wants. And I'm reading this, and I'm like, this is literally the plot from that cartoon. Wow, that's actually kind of cool. So, yeah, and this one's a bit of fun, actually, honestly. It's really cool. It's cool seeing different kind of designs, the pirates back in the day, and all that stuff. So, yeah. And, they figure this is so dumb in a funny way. So they dress up as pirates to blend in and everything. And through a course of stuff that was happening, the Thing just, they get captured by some pirate. They're captured by some other pirates who, follow Blackbeard and everything. And then they break out and take him on. And they're trying to find, where is Blackbeard? Where's his treasure? And during all this, another ship attacks them. So now they have to, rally their troops. All the pirates have to work together now with the four or the three to stop this other ship from attacking them and sinking their ship. And they do so. And Ben leads the charge. And, it's where they find out that, oh shit, Ben is Blackbeard. These guys, there's no Blackbeard. There's no actual real Blackbeard. It's just, through a time loop, the Thing, looks like what people thought Blackbeard looked like back then with the black beard and the eye patch. And, people just assumed he's Blackbeard. Just the pirate crew then just follow him and join him. He's Blackbeard and all. It's like, when I was reading that, I'm like, you cannot be serious. Holy shit. Ben is Blackbeard. So the treasure they found was literally just, I guess, these pirates' treasure that's now Blackbeard's treasure. So it's crazy. It literally is. So then they decide, okay, we're going to dump these jewels out of the treasure chest because clearly there's something in here that Doom wants. We'll replace it with these giant chains to kind of mimic the weight of it. And we'll go back until once he picks us back up, take us back to modern day, we'll give it to him, grab Sue, and then jet. But then, so in the cartoon, this is adapted from, Ben initially tells them he wants to stay behind because the pirates back then, they don't do the whole Blackbeard thing, by the way. At least I don't remember. But I don't think they do a whole thing where Ben is revealed to be the actual Blackbeard in the show. But he decides to stay back because people accept him there. They don't think he's a freak, but the pirates like him there. So he says, I'm going to stay here, guys. You go back to the present. But in the comic, he does decide to stay here also, but he's like, I can't, Reed and Johnny, you guys are going to go try and make me come back to the present with you, so I can't have that. I'm going to throw you overboard and presumably let you die in the water. I'm not kidding. He does that. He tries doing that, and it's like, what? And then, like in the show, a tornado hits, kills all the pirates, and everyone dies except for the three of them. And, they wash up on shore, and Ben just apologizes to them. He's like, hey, I kind of got carried away in the whole pirate thing. Hey, I'm sorry. I tried throwing you overboard and killing you guys. It's like, and they're just like, ah, it's alright, man. But it's like, it's so crazy. I'm reading this, I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, they're so quick to forgive him about that. It's crazy. I don't know what the hell that whole shit was. It was nuts. It was so weird. Also, yeah, they do have a little advertisement for the first Hulk comic here. It's fun. So yeah, they go back in time. Doom figures out that there's no treasure in here. Like, he says this specifically. The reason why he wanted it was because those little baubles are more than what they seem. They were originally the property of Merlin, the ancient magician. He gave them mystic power, the power to make their owner invincible. So, that's what they're for. But then he finds out they're not in there. They attack him, finds out he's a Doombot. First appearance of a Doombot. That's fun. And then they still keep trying to escape where they are. And again, I will admit, despite making Sue the damsel in distress in this comic, which is, of that era, they do have her, have some agency and, distracts Doom, and she does free the other three from a room where the oxygen is being pulled out from, or toxic gas, or something like that. So, they do give her some agency and, actually helping to save the day, which is good. Again, happened a few other times in the other issues where she goes after the Miracle Man to try and stop him. Again, she gets hypnotized, but still, she was proactive in doing that. And again, here, she actually does help and, save the other three. They're trying to save her, but she evidently saves them. So, that's good. They're destroying the patriarchy of sexism back in the 60s. Good on you, Stan Jack. And, yeah, again, there's not much to it. They beat Doctor Doom, he escapes, the day is saved, and they have this final bit of dialogue where they're talking about, where Johnny says, gosh, first Submariner and now Doctor Doom loose on the Earth? What happens next? And then Reed says, hey, we'll devote our lives to tracking them down. We can do no more. And then Thing says, and next time I'll handle things my way. And then it has a little text box saying, surprise follows surprise in the next fabulous issue of the Fantastic Four, which I have seen the cover of what that one is. It's Doctor Doom and Namor team up. So, yeah. But that final, little text box was, it felt very indicative of the era. Because, again, like I said, we're in, the beginning stages of the Marvel Universe, the beginning of the Marvels and all the superheroes. So, them talking about how, oh, man, we have threats like Namor and Doctor Doom, these crazy bad guys on the loose. What are we gonna do? We're gonna hunt them down. We're gonna stop them. We'll do that. And, it feels cool because, you're reading that and it's again, nowadays it's cool reading that because, it's the building blocks and the foundation of, we're seeing the Marvel Universe as we know it begin here. So that's all very cool. Yeah. Overall, I hope I gave a good review on these comics because, again, there's not much to them. We're not going super in depth on them. But yeah, that is the first 3 issues of the Fantastic Four from 1961 and 62. Yeah, honestly, I think these are a bit of fun. They're goofy, they're silly, they're very hokey and of their time. They're definitely better comics nowadays, more in-depth storytelling, large scaling epics and all that stuff. But there's a lot of value in these old comics for a reason. These ones in particular, they started everything. They started the birth of the Marvel Universe, which led to Iron Man, Spider-Man, X-Men, Thor, Hulk, Ant-Man, Daredevil, all those guys. It was the beginning of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's lustrous, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't remember, but you know what I mean. The beginning of their epic career at Marvel. So, yeah, and normally, a lot of the old 60s comics with these characters, when you Google online, top 10 best, stories of so-and-so to read, or, ranking the best stories of these characters, normally the early stuff, a lot of those characters, you don't usually see in the best ranking list. You're not normally seeing, the very, early stuff of X-Men there, or, Iron Man, or even on DC side of things. You're not usually seeing, the early Batman or Superman stuff. But from what I've seen of some lists online, they actually do include this original run of Fantastic Four, as, one of their best. And I definitely see why, because, again, like I said, started the Marvel Universe, but also there is, some fun to this. Again, yeah, sure, it could seem maybe, a little just, repetitive, how many times Ben throws a hissy fit and gets mad at Johnny and all that stuff. But, it was new for the time, because it was like, we're seeing superheroes, like a superhero team that are a family and they're bickering all the time and all that stuff. So like, that was new for back in the day. And yeah, it's fun. There's not much else to say about this, really. Will I get the other issues they released in Facsimile Edition? Probably not, because I don't need to collect the whole thing. I can read them also online on Marvel Unlimited, so yeah. But still, I'm glad I did read these. I'll put the first one in the front here. I'm glad I did get these and read these. They are a bit of fun. I do recommend, if you want to check these out for yourself, there should be copies still in your local comic store right now, or read them on Marvel Unlimited. There's also, like, collected trades of these older comics and, like, masterwork editions. So, yeah, read these. I think there's value to these. They're very fun. Like, very good, solid writing by Stan Lee for back in the 60s. And, great art by Jack Kirby. Legends, reason why the Fantastic Four became popular and are still popular today, because of this comic. So, yeah, very good. I definitely enjoyed it a lot. Alright, so I hope this was a good review overall. Again, I'm not sure. We'll see how it goes in the edit. It's probably a longer review, I imagine, but still, I thought it was a bit of fun doing this, so, yeah. Thank you all for watching. Tell me, are you excited for the new Fantastic Four movie? Are you going to see it opening weekend? I'm going to try and go see it as soon as I can. So, yeah. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys later for next comic review, whatever might be on the channel. And, yeah. Tell me also if you read these comics as well. I'd love to know. So, yeah. And what do you think of them? So, yeah. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys all later. Goodbye.
Hey, it's Yuri Lowenthal here. You might know me from this Marvel Spider-Man games or other places as well. You're tuned in to 100 Bomb Studios. Hit like and subscribe, but only if you like really, really nerdy stuff. Because that's why I'm here.